Alright, so the Xiaomi Mi 9 and the Mi 9 SE bring us a lot of features for the price. I've had the Mi 9 on the channel, I've done some reviews of that, I'll link them below if you want to go and see them. I really like this phone, it's great value. The Mi 9 SE obviously brings over a lot of the same design aspects, although there are some differences, and of course there is a different price point too. So with that said, let's just go through the top 5 features I found with the Xiaomi 9 SE. Right, so the Xiaomi 9 SE is the Mi 9's little brother. Little in every way, it's physically smaller and it also has a lower price. But the first feature I want to highlight here is the screen. So the Mi 9 SE comes in with a 5.97 inch, basically 6-inch AMOLED screen. Now this is a great panel and it brings over pretty much the same specs as you get in its big brother, just in a smaller form factor. Actually, it has the same resolution as the Mi 9, so you're actually getting a higher PPI. It's a really crisp screen and it's an AMOLED screen, which is significant because at this price point, just 2,000 RMB starting at here in China, to get an AMOLED screen is not very usual. Most phones at this price point do not give you an AMOLED screen. They stick with LCD screens, obviously because they're cheaper. But in the Mi 9, for this price point, starting at 2,000 RMB, you get a really solid AMOLED panel. Obviously, the design of this phone pretty much speaks for itself as well. Tiny bezels, that bottom bezel has been reduced, and that top bezel virtually non-existent. You just have a really, in my opinion, good looking water drop notch at the top. So with this panel you get some great wallpapers and they just look really good. Now they're going to be pretty much the same as the Mi 9, obviously just a bit smaller. But I think the screen is definitely an area to highlight just from the price to performance ratio. Having an OLED panel is going to save on battery. There are dark modes that you can use with the phone. Xiaomi has them. For example, the phone app or any Xiaomi native apps can use dark mode, which is going to save you a ton of battery life and it's going to save your eyes at night as well. It's a really solid start to a phone when you get such a good panel at this price. The brightness on the panel is really great too. Again, it just seems brighter than a lot of LCDs, especially at the price point. If you want to watch videos, what Xiaomi usually do is just cut the screen off just before the water drop notch. So that usually doesn't get in the way of the viewing experience. A 6-inch screen in that small body is definitely to be commended. Right, moving on from the screen, the second great feature of this phone is that under-screen fingerprint sensor. This again is a very modern, very expensive bit of equipment. There are really not many phones, especially at this price point, giving you an under-screen fingerprint sensor. Of course, more and more phones are having them as we get further into 2019. It's going to become a standard, but to have it on the Xiaomi Mi 9 SE is absolutely fantastic, and it is exactly the same one as you find in the Mi 9, and it just works. It's so quick, it's so easy, it's there. It just works every time, it's very accurate, and it's definitely very quick to unlock the phone. Again, you have to remind yourself that this phone starts at 2,000 RMB. That's the Chinese retail price. Comparing it to other phones, there really are maybe 1 or 2 phones that have a fingerprint sensor under the screen. Xiaomi is part of that group. You can also unlock the phone using a form of Face ID. Basically just takes a picture of your face, but obviously that's not secure as the fingerprint. I think this fingerprint sensor under the screen is such a modern design, and you know you're getting pretty much the latest technology in a cheap device from Xiaomi, and this thing works pretty much 100% of the time. It's quick and it's secure. It's a really great feature of the Mi 9 SE. Considering the price of the Mi 9 SE, you may not have complained if Xiaomi put it on the back of that device, but to have it under the screen is a great addition. Moving on to number 3, just the design of the device in general brings all of those really great looking design aspects from the big brother, the Mi 9, down to the Mi 9 SE. You get all the awesome colors of the Mi 9, you get that really good looking camera bump on the back. It looks pretty much exactly the same as on the Mi 9, and you have that really cool ring on the top camera there. It's just a nice design feature that I think adds a lot to the phone. The colors on these phones are fantastic. The bezels are really small. Everything you get in this phone just goes smaller for the Mi 9 SE. The buttons are all positioned perfectly. It's light, and as design goes, I just think it's very modern. You're gonna have this for a few years and it's not going to look old. Quickly moving on to number 4, I really like the addition of the Snapdragon 712 processor in the Mi 9 SE. Now, unlike Samsung and Apple, who carry over all the same specs from the big phones into their smaller phones, Xiaomi have changed the inside of the Mi 9 SE. Obviously, at 2000 RMB, we're not going to be able to get the Snapdragon 855, but we have the Snapdragon 712, which is the latest mid-range processor from Snapdragon. And for most people, it's going to be plenty powerful enough for everyday use. The 712 allows for 4K video recording and slow-mo. You take a little bit of a step down in definition when you record slow-mo, but the fact that it's there at all is a great feature. And again, if you just look at the price and you compare it to other phones in that price bracket, most of them don't give you 4K video and most of them don't give you slow-mo recording. Bang for your buck, it seems like Xiaomi just give us so much for that price. It's not a slow processor, so for most of the things that you want to use it for, even if you're gaming quite a lot, it's probably going to be enough for you. The 712 also has good electronic image stabilization, which is needed. The camera units don't have optical image stabilization, but I've tested a lot of Xiaomi devices and it seems like the EIS in these works really well. So that's another great feature. But moving on to number 5, probably the best feature I think of the Xiaomi Mi 9 SE is this camera unit. Now this is the Mi 9. The camera unit on the Mi 9 and the Mi 9 SE does differ. The main camera unit on both of them is the same. It's that 48 megapixel Sony sensor. Now it should be noted, if you buy either of these phones, that as standard, the camera takes 12 megapixel images. So if you open the camera app and press shoot, it will take a 12 megapixel photo. If you want to go into 48 megapixel mode, you have to go into settings, choose 48 megapixel mode, and then take a picture. It's not a big deal because the 12 megapixel images are still really, really great, but it is important to understand that as standard, you get 12 megapixel images just in case you buy the phone expecting it to take 48 megapixel images all the time. So that sensor is the same between them. Now the other 2 imaging units do change. You have to assume, because of the price difference and because the Mi 9 SE is a little brother, that the imaging units probably aren't as good quality as on the big brother, the Mi 9, but I tested it out and you still get incredibly good images. You get a 13 megapixel ultra wide and an 8 megapixel telephoto lens. Again, it's really important to understand that at this price point, it is very rare to have a phone with triple cameras. The vast majority of phones in this price point, especially amongst Chinese competitors, have one main camera. Maybe some of them have a secondary camera as a depth sensor, but certainly no imaging units. Again, there are a couple that do have a secondary camera, but Xiaomi is really one of the first to bring a triple camera at this price point. Having those 3 cameras as 3 separate imaging units will give you so much more flexibility in the way that you use the camera. You can get ultra wide, you can get more people in your shot, you can take landscape images, you can go all the way into telephoto if you need to zoom into something. It's a great feature of a phone at this price. With that 48 megapixel mode, you get an extra zoom. So if you take a photo, as I took a photo of this doll in the shop, when you use 48 megapixel mode, you can take the photo and then zoom in a lot closer than you can in the normal 12 megapixel mode. It's just another feature that you get from a phone with a great price like the Xiaomi Mi 9 SE. So you've got a great triple camera setup, 4K video recording, an AMOLED screen, an under-screen fingerprint sensor, and a really great design. And it's 2000 RMB. Xiaomi really do put together a very good value phone in the Mi 9 SE. There are a few other features as well that I think stand out. For example, it has USB-C charging, where a lot of other competitors are sticking with micro USB, and it has very good fast charging as well, 18-watt fast charging. All in all, it's just a very good phone at a very good price, and you may think of getting the Mi 9 SE over the Mi 9. If you want a slightly smaller phone, but still keeping a really big screen, the screen is essentially 6 inches, and you're not worried about having the very, very best, latest, most powerful processor. If you're just using the phone normally, using messaging apps and social media, then what a great value phone the Mi 9 SE really is.